everyone, my name is Rachel. Welcome back to my channel, and welcome to my latest recent reads or latest reading wrap-up video. Since I last did one of these, I have read about 11 books, so I'm wrapping up the end of February into the beginning of March. I'm really liking this style of wrap-ups that I've been doing lately, where I'm not talking about every single book that I read in a period of time. I'm just bringing up the highlights, whether that be my favorite 5-star reads, or maybe books that I DNF'd, or books that I didn't love so much, just books that I feel are noteworthy and I should talk about with you guys. So in today's video, I have, I believe, 6 books to bring up. I am very excited to talk about most of these, though one of them is a DNF, unfortunately, but I am definitely in a reading slump at the moment. The second half of February, if you don't know, I was out of town doing an opera gig, which was amazing. It was just an incredible experience, but I found that I just was not in the mood to read, with the exception of a couple of books on this list. It was very hard for me to feel motivated to pick something up, and I'm still feeling the effects of that now that I've been back home for about a week or so, which really sucks. I'm hoping that now I'm back home and now that I'm getting back into my normal routine, hopefully I'll feel more motivated to pick up books, and hopefully I will read said books more quickly so that I can read more books per month. Basically, that's the goal for me. So let's go ahead and get into this list of 6 books that I want to talk about for this video. So first and foremost, we have The Rebel by Sophie Lark. This is book 2 in her Kingmaker Chronicles series. This is a mafia romance series that is a spinoff of her Brutal Birthright series. So I definitely would recommend reading those books first. I hate being that person that's like recommending a book to you and then I'm like, oh, but you need to read like 10 books before this. Sorry, not sorry. But I mean, all of Sophie's books are amazing. You'll have a good time for sure. And if you know nothing about this series, this is a new adult series that takes place at this mafia college that is on its own little private island. And it definitely has the vibe of like Hogwarts meets Vampire Academy meets Gossip Girl, because you've got all the drama and the tea going on from different side characters as well as the main characters of each book. But there is always a romance at the center of each book of the series. And so book 1 was The Heir, and then we have book 2, The Rebel. So The Rebel is referring to Miles, this beautiful man we have pictured here. And then Zoe is his love interest, and we were introduced to these characters in the first book. Something that I love about this series so far is that we actually get 3 POVs in each book so far. In The Heir, that was a love triangle, so we had Leo, Anna, and Dean, whereas in this book we have Miles, Zoe, and then we get Kat's POV. Kat is Zoe's younger sister who has just started going to Kingmakers, and she's definitely having a rough time towards the beginning of this book. But I love that we get her POV, because not only are we getting that central romance between Miles and Zoe, and I'll get into that in a minute, but we're also getting essentially the setup for book 3, which is The Bully, which is going to be the romance between Kat and Dean. I am so excited to get to that book. You guys have no idea. Oh my god. So Miles is basically the person you go to at Kingmakers to buy like black market things, basically, because at Kingmakers, like, the students aren't allowed to have like anything. They can't have a phone, they can't have any devices like that. They don't have access to the internet. They definitely don't have access to drugs or anything like that. And so Miles is the person you go to if you want any of those things. And so over the years, it seems like from when he was a teenager to now, he's just like building this insane wealth, just doing all kinds of different things. And so in that way, he is a very motivated person, but he's also the type of guy that's never had to fight for anything in his life. Things have come pretty easily to him. Then we have Zoe, who is in this arranged marriage situation with this guy. I think his name's Rocco, and Rocco is a psycho. He is twisted, he is messed up, he's horrible. She definitely does not want to be engaged to this guy. But her parents are forcing her to make this alliance between the two families. And so at first, Zoe kind of hates Miles because he's never had to fight for anything and he's just very laid back, and she's just the opposite of that. She's very serious, very studious. But over the course of this book, they start falling for each other, and Miles now finds that he has something and someone to fight for, and he's gonna do everything, and I mean everything in his power to have Zoe. And that's one of the things I loved about this book, is seeing Miles like have that motivation for something, and seeing the character development of both Miles and Zoe individually and together. There were also some hot sex scenes in this. Like, okay, Sophie, Miles has a bit of like a dominant streak going on, and it was great. It was amazing. What can I say? I think overall I did enjoy The Heir more because of that love triangle and how iconic Dean is, and that really was his villain origin story. But there's a lot of amazing things going on in this story as well. And like I said, I am just so excited to get to book 3, The Bully. But first, according to Sophie Lark's reading order, I actually have to go back and read Ivan and Snow, which are books 1 and 2 in her like Underworld series. So I'm like a little sad about that, but I know that those are both really good books as well. So yeah, I mean, I cannot recommend this series highly enough. It's so good. Like, I feel like this is the series you should read if you were really into those YA books that were full of the drama and full of the tea, like the Gossip Girl books. There's a lot of other series kind of floating around in my mind, but you want also more of an adult story, then that combines both of those elements in an amazing way. So now we have to talk about my most recent DNF, or a book that I did not finish. Unfortunately, this is Heart of Iron by Beck McMaster. You might recall from my last recent reads video that Kiss of Steel, which is book 1 in this London steampunk series, was one of my highlights of that recent reads video. I really enjoyed that book. And so going into this book, book 2, I was very excited. I saw that a lot of people I follow on Goodreads were giving this book even higher ratings than Kiss of Steel. I was also very excited because this book is about Will, who is a werewolf shifter, and then Lena, who is the younger sister to Honoria, who was the heroine from book 1. And I thought that their relationship was just set up really well, but I ended up DNFing this at 44%, and I have 2 major reasons for that. One, the non-romance plot I feel was taking over the story, and I didn't give a shit about that non-romance plot at all. And then the romance between Will and Lena, I feel, like I said, it wasn't featured enough in the 44% that I read. And I feel like it was just a little too much of like push and pull between the two of them. Like, basically Will continuously pushing her away for various reasons. He basically doesn't feel worthy of her. Yeah, I wasn't feeling invested, and it was a chore for me to pick up this book. And so I had just gotten to a point where I knew that this book was gonna put me into even more of a slump, and so I decided to put it down. Next book I wanna talk about is Love Letter to Whiskey by Candy Steiner. This is a book that has been hyped up by every Candy Steiner fan. I feel like this book is unanimously agreed upon that it's her best book. I'm gonna tell you right now, I disagree with that, and I'll get into those reasons. But this is basically the angstiest of angsty romances you will probably ever read. Oh my goodness, does this serve the angst? And I did really enjoy that. I have no problem with angst as long as it's well done, and I do think that it was well done. But there are some issues that I have with this book. From what I understand, Candy Steiner wrote this years ago at this point, probably like 8 or so years ago if I'm not mistaken. While I understand why she felt the need to write the book when she did, she was going through a divorce herself, and this book was a way of healing for her, you know? But at the same time, I kind of wish she would have waited to write the story until she was a better writer, because I've read some of her most recent stuff and I'm absolutely obsessed. But the thing with this book is that the original version is all from B, our heroine's point of view, and then Candy realized that that version wasn't enough. Honestly, truly, just gonna throw that out there. And so she wrote a novella from Jamie's POV to add to the story, and so she compiled that into the 5th anniversary edition. So you can buy an audiobook version of that 5th anniversary edition, and I would recommend that you do, because then you would get the complete story. Unfortunately, the original version does not give you the complete story. And so I just think from the get-go, she should have just written this in dual POV. I kind of understand why she didn't, but I just think that that would have served the story so much better. It's funny, I gave this 5 stars upon finishing it, but upon reflection, I do think it's more of a 4-star rating, because I noticed towards the end of like just the original version that's just from B's point of view, I was zoning out quite a bit. It was getting to a point where the angst was just like a bit too much for me, and you don't get a lot of payoff from said angst in the original version. Now, in the additional novella called Love Whiskey, which is from Jamie's POV, you do get a bit more of their happily ever after. I still don't think you get enough for what Candy puts you through through this story, but you do get to see a bit more of their epilogue and of their HEA. Now, going into Love Whiskey, I expected more out of this novella. It felt like we were just reliving the major events from, you know, the original novel, just from Jamie's POV. But I feel like we weren't getting a ton of insight from Jamie himself. Like, there were a few instances where we would really get his mindset and like why he did the things that he did, or why he said the things that he said, whatever. But I feel like most of that novella is just a rehashing of what we already read about in the original book. So to me, it didn't add all that much to the story. And so I definitely was zoning out quite a bit while listening to Love Whiskey in particular. So unfortunately, this book was not all that I hoped it would be. I still enjoyed it, but like I said, I was zoning out quite a bit. Like I've also said, I've read some of Candy's more recent works and I've been absolutely obsessed with them. So yeah, I don't know what to say, because I'm in the minority with this book. So in February, for SJM Along, or Sarah J Maas Along, we were reading A Court of Silver Flames. Look at this beauty. This dust jacket, you guys. I will never get over how beautiful these dust jackets from the Dusty Shop are. I will link their site down in the description below if you are interested. But I'll just tell you now, their dust jackets are 1000% worth the price. Every now and then they do like a 25% off sale. Like I got mine for a Black Friday sale, for instance. So if I were you, I would wait till they have a sale. But I mean, just stunning, absolutely gorgeous. I'm obsessed with this scene in particular, because if you've read the book, you know that this is during the Court of Nightmares scene. Just absolutely beautiful and stunning, and I adored this reread just as much as I did the first time that I read this book. I really don't have a different opinion. The reason why I'm so glad that I reread this while I was out of town was, like I told you guys earlier in the video, I have been in a reading slump lately. But when it came to my reread for this book, I actually did want to pick up the book, and I actually, you know, was very invested and excited and just absolutely obsessed with every word that Sarah wrote, which was just really great. Rereading this was just the perfect escape for me at the time, and it just reaffirmed my love for Nesta in particular. I relate to Nesta so much, it's almost scary. It is almost scary, honestly, truly. And Cassian he's perfect. Listen, upon reread of this book, I almost love him more than Reese. He's just the perfect hero with himbo energy, you know? Love him. And I love this story so much. I will say, upon reread, there are some plot points in this that I'm like, Sarah, did you have to write it that way? I'm not convinced, but it is what it is. I was just along for the ride. This was just absolutely incredible. And oh man, when are we getting the next book in this series? Like, we need it. Like, I need Asriel to get his HEA, like, ASAP. Oh my god. And there's just so much they could do with this world going forward. So yeah, I loved this so much. Next up, I want to talk about another reread that I did while I was out of town. I've been wanting to reread Breaking the Bully by Jessa Cain for a long time. This was actually the very first novella that I had read by this author. And upon reread, I have to tell you guys, this novella to me is quite a bit different from most of Jessa Cain's works. First of all, it's not nearly as bonkers, nearly as wild as most of her other novellas. So if I were to recommend you one novella as kind of your gateway to this author, I would say either pick up Breaking the Bully or Hefty, which is another new adult romance. But this is pretty tame for Miss Cain, and it's very romantic. It's the perfect bully romance. I will say that. This is the best bully romance that I've ever read. I will admit I haven't read that many because it's not always my favorite trope ever, but this is how you do a bully romance. So we have Moore and Allie at the very beginning of this novella. They're 16 years old. And one of the things I love about this novella is how important storms are in like the storytelling, because basically Allie is just obsessed with storms. And so she's just like laying outside in her front yard while it's storming outside. And then we have Moore, our hero, who is the handyman that is about to do some work on Allie's house. And something else that I need to mention is that Allie's father is extremely emotionally and physically abusive. And so while Allie and Moore have this insane connection from the moment that they meet, after Moore leaves, Allie's father tells her, if you talk to that boy, if you look at that boy ever again, I will know and I will make both of your lives a living hell. And so from that point on, time jumps to 2 years later when they're both 18 and they're both seniors in high school. So from that point on, she has completely ignored him. And Moore is floored by this. He feels that she's ignoring him because she feels she's too good for him, because she's from a wealthy family. He's from the wrong side of the tracks. And so from then on, he becomes her bully because he's just trying to get her attention in any way that he can, and he's just pissed off at her and pissed off at the world. And so then when the truth comes out of why she's been ignoring him, the groveling in this is grade A. Some of the best groveling that I have ever read, and their romance is everything. Oh my god. So steamy, so hot. What else can I say? This is just a perfect new adult romance novella. I cannot recommend it highly enough. I feel that not nearly enough people have read this one. So last but certainly not least, we have to talk about a book that I finished last night and I am just blown away by. And that is Heartless by Elsie Silver. Yes! I finally read Heartless, you guys. I finally picked this book up. The audiobook came out, I want to say a month or so ago, and so I had no excuse at that point. And I also decided to buddy read this with Ava, one of my best friends, and that was just an amazing experience too, just getting to send voice memos back and forth to her, and we could just scream at each other about how amazing this book was. Yeah, so if you know nothing about this book, or nothing about Elsie Silver, this is book 2 in her Chestnut Springs series, which is a small town cowboy romance series. I need to get back in my small town romance era because I was having a really good time with that a few months back. But anyways, this is a single dad romance, a nanny romance, also a grumpy sunshine romance. There's a lot of amazing tropes going on in here, and Elsie Silver just does a fantastic job writing them. Also, this is the follow-up to Flawless, book 1. I really loved Flawless as well. That is Rhett and Summer's romance. And so we have Cade, who is Rhett's older brother, and then we have Willa, who is Summer's best friend. So Cade needs a nanny for his 5-year-old son, Luke. And all the women that he has been interviewing for this job are way more attracted to maybe getting with him than they are with actually taking care of Luke. So he just doesn't want to hire any of these women. And so Summer, his soon-to-be sister-in-law, tells him to consider Willa her best friend. Willa is a spitfire. She is an icon. She's absolutely hilarious. The opposite of Cade in every way possible. And so at first they butt heads, and the way that Willa just puts Cade in his place and deals with him, like the banter between the two of them in the beginning is just everything. Their meet cute alone, I gotta tell y'all about this meet cute because this was absolutely hilarious. They meet in a coffee shop before they're formally introduced to each other. And I think Willa's purse kind of spills out a bit and a pair of her underwear comes out of her purse. And so Cade picks it up and Willa just tells him to keep it basically, and she just leaves the coffee shop. And so there you have it. That's how the two of them meet, and Cade is like instantly attracted to her, but then he realizes that she is the woman that is applying to be his nanny, and so things instantly change between the two of them. There's so many amazing moments and scenes in this book. Oh my god, I am obsessed with Daddy Cade and how he is with Willa. Also, he's the best dad ever. He is the best dad I have ever read about in any book. Doesn't matter what genre, he is the best father ever. And I'm obsessed with his relationship with Luke, his son, but I'm also obsessed with Willa's relationship with Luke and how she falls for Luke before she falls for Cade. I was gobsmacked by the sex scenes in this because I was not prepared. I was not ready for Daddy Cade's dirty talk. Oh my god. Wow, there were several moments while I was reading this book and reading those scenes in particular where I was like, oh, like I had lost the ability of speech, okay? Amazing, absolutely amazing. And just this little family that the three of them form together by the end. And I love the side characters. I adored the setup for book 3, which is Powerless. That is a friends to lovers romance between Sloane and Jasper. I really love the setup for that. Do yourself a favor. If you have been sleeping on this series like I have, go ahead, get the audiobooks because they're all amazing. I am so stoked for book 3 because Teddy Hamilton is one of the narrators for that book. And I thought that the narrators that they got for this book were absolute perfection for Cade and Willa. Just read these books ASAP. They have become comfort reads for me. I'm already excited about rereading Flawless at some point. Just absolutely incredible. So that is going to be it for my latest recent reads video. I would love it if you guys would leave a comment down below if you want to tell me about books that you've been reading lately. Tell me about books that you DNF'd maybe, that you didn't love, or tell me about your favorites. I always love getting recommendations from you guys in the comments. I would also love it if you would leave a like and subscribe, and I thank you so much in advance if you do, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!